Well, if I have learned anything on this project, it's that I should not attempt any kind of timed design or sewing competition. I'm not a big fan of speed sewing. I feel like this is something you see a lot nowadays, this focus on creating stuff as fast as possible, and I think you kind of see it the most with garment creation. You know, making a shirt in 2 hours, or making a dress in half a day, whatever it may be. It feels kind of like we're trying to compete with fast fashion, which, as home creators, is kind of the opposite of what we're trying to do. And it really shifts the focus from trying to make something that is made very well or just enjoying the process of making into just how fast can I get this done for that wow factor. Y'all, we have like the same collection of neighborhood characters who walk by our house almost every day, if not every day, and I'm starting to create little storylines for them because they're all so specific of human beings. Okay, and honestly, I suppose there is a place in the world for both slow and speedy sewing. Comparing it to baking, there's all of these recipes that are like quick and easy and like, yeah, sometimes I want to walk into the kitchen and 10 minutes later be putting a cake in the oven. And other times I want to spend 8 hours or 3 days pointlessly poring over all the details of an elaborate dessert. So both styles of creating have a place in my life, and I guess the same could be said for any kind of creating. The same could be said for sewing. I really 180'd that in a rather short period of time, didn't I? Good thing, because today, in this project video, I'm gonna be speed sewing. It'll be a kind of nice transition because I just finished that split side skirt tutorial, which was probably the slowest and most in-depth video I've ever made. Sort of a straight up opposite. And yes, surprise, I don't always post my videos in order. Anyway, I'm not gonna let this become a thing for all of my projects because I am very specifically focusing on allowing myself time to enjoy the creating process, to let it take as long as it needs to take, to not rush through just to hit that finish line and have a finished product. But this specific project is just different. I have been acquiring some absolutely beautiful springy colored fabrics in the last year or so. And I have a bunch of ideas for outfits here that are like, none of them are really revolutionary or out of the box or super complex or like new explorations. They're just things I like to make. There's even several patterns in here, including, are we surprised? My favorite one. And I potentially have some stuff coming up in life that I don't really want to talk about yet because I'm not sure if it's gonna happen. But if it does happen, then I'd really like to have some of these outfits for that stuff. So I'm gonna make them. I'm gonna grab the first one in line and just start sewing until I either run out of time or run out of projects or both, I don't know. Maybe speed sewing will win me over. Let's do it. First up, we have this peach material that I just recently used for my split side skirt. When making the top half, I thought it had a lovely swish to it, and I got the idea to use the remaining fabric for a circular wrap skirt, reminiscent of like a ballet skirt. I also have this slightly darker peach trim that I got at Remainders a bit ago, and I've been wanting to use trim more, so I'd like to put that all along the bottom. This beautiful lavender knit material inspired the whole speed through some outfits thing, because I really want a dress out of it. And what better dress than my only pattern I like using, the princess seam with raglan sleeves. I'd like to figure out how to add some butterfly flouncy sleeves to it instead of the regular ones. This striped fabric is what I used for my kitchen curtains, but I have a solid amount left and I've been mulling over what to use it for. I'm thinking a peasant style dress, elastic around the top, sort of sack shape, great for going under other things. Like a pinafore made of this green linen looking but definitely not linen fabric. I've never made a pinafore before, but I've actually been wanting to experiment with it and maybe also with that whole split side style we know and love. So I think that'll be super fun and simple and adorable. I also have this super cute green gingham stuff that I was totally going to use, but spoiler alert, I ended up dumping it in favor of another fabric entirely, so, forget you ever saw that. Moving on, my mother-in-law got me this printed fabric that's specifically been designed to make a circle skirt with, and it's so freaking cute. I've been meaning to make it for months now, and I just haven't gotten around to it, so what better time than this speed sewing project? Last for now, but definitely not least, I have this lovely thin and breezy light blue material with a white floral print, and I think it is just perfect for a springy, summery dress. So I'm gonna try using another pattern to make a wrap dress. I don't know, this one is different than the last wrap dress pattern I tried to use, so maybe it'll be a better experience, but we'll see. Those flounces in this fabric though, I mean, they'd be delightful. I'm gonna start with the peach skirt. I was hoping to get a double circle skirt out of it, but there was not as much left as I thought, so instead I spent an insane amount of time figuring out how to squeeze out the optimal length, number of circles, and amount of wrap. Is it really speed sewing if you take hours to nitpick the design as you go? I managed to eke out 1.5 circles with a solid amount of overlap though, so worth it. I finished the edge with a tiny rolled hem. This is gonna take a while. Then added the trim all the way around. Loving it. For the waistband, I wanted something really thin and small so it can wrap easily without having to go through itself, if that makes sense. So I just used this bias tape with a nice little pattern on it. Of course, we can't forget the pockets, and after deciding I was going to do a front pocket instead of side seams, I was like, hey, why do pockets have to be rectangles? You are such a silly little butt. Yeah! So I used the circle from the center of the circle skirt, cut out 3 more, and made circle pockets. Then I only sewed on one because I like the option of wearing the skirt with the pocket or without it, depending on which way you wrap. Why is that so fun? One down. And here she is, option to wrap with the pocket on top, or secret pocket, even better. I started this piece at 1 o'clock, but didn't actually start cutting anything out until 1:45 thanks to all the math I was doing. Finished at 6 p.m. with a lot of little breaks throughout. Matt came home, Link needed attention, I got distracted by my phone. Despite all that, I'll say 6 hours total. The skirt is definitely shorter than I normally wear, and I considered putting a gathered ribbon around the bottom for a bit of added length, but ultimately the ballet skirt look is a shorter one anyway, so I'm okay with it. It was nice to use some trim and get creative with the pocket, even though it doesn't really lay very flat. Oh well. Overall, a solid 7 out of 10. Day 2 started with a headache, but we drink coffee and plow ahead. I want to make the lavender dress today, and big surprise, there's not really enough fabric here. Luckily, I do have a couple other knits that coordinate, so I think I'll end up doing some color blocking. Combining multiple fabrics is something I'm running into more and more lately, which just makes sense when you're almost always working with thrifted remnants, and yeah, I mean, I really like it. It makes me get more creative with each piece. I watched about 10 disconnected seconds of a video on how to make butterfly sleeves and then went for it. I'm not sure how it will combine with the raglan style, but we'll never know if we don't try. We start the sewing with pockets because of course, and after that the dress is always super easy to put together. Just a bunch of seams, you know? Even the butterfly sleeves were really easy to attach. Second garment complete, and it's so comfy, y'all. I love the way the flouncy sleeves look and feel, the pockets are great, and even though I was picturing an all lavender dress, I think the different fabric in the center is really fun. I started this one at 8:20, got distracted several times along the way, took a break at 12:20 for lunch, came back at 1, and finished at 1:45, so we'll say 4 hours and 45 minutes total make time. And this one gets an 8.5 out of 10. Next. There's a decent amount of this striped fabric, but it does have some stains across it, so cutting around those will be lightly complicated. This is a super simple design for a peasant shirt or dress where you basically take some rectangles for the bodice and the sleeves and cut an angle on the armhole region of both. I admit with great shame that I cut out that angle pattern with my fabric scissors.
Dishonor on you! Dishonor on your cow!
It wasn't on purpose. The whole thing took a weirdly long time to sew together for such a simple garment, I guess mostly because I had to do the French seams. Once I got my pockets attached to the front panel, I had to stitch the 2 back panels on, then add the sleeves, and finally sew a channel around the top. You thread elastic through that, and then bam, you've got a neckline. I finished the sleeves with an elastic hem and a ruffle, and whipped out a little sash from some leftover fabric just for the funsies of it. And then I tried it on and realized it's really short. Like, too short for my own comfort. Which would be okay because it's mostly meant to be worn under other things, more like a tunic than a dress, but you could see the side seam pockets blowing in the breeze since there's nothing to secure them upward and I made them giant, so I think I'm gonna find some fabric and add a ruffle to this hem, but not tonight. I'm done for tonight. The next morning, no headache, still coffee, I cut up a purple sheet I got at Goodwill into a bunch of strips, sewed all those strips together, then in half to form a tube, gathered that tube into a ruffle and attached it to the bottom of the dress. Sounds quick, right? It was not quick, but it is pretty cute. I actually really like the pop of color at the bottom, although I probably could have done like 2/3 of what I did for this ruffle and still been fine. I also did not need to do 2 panels of fabric in the back of this dress. I always want to add more fabric to everything and I need to learn to stop it. It would have been better with just a single panel in the back, just like the front. It's given me a bit of like clownish vibes, I think just from the stripes and the general poofiness of it, but with a belt, it's actually kind of cute on its own. Like, I could do this. I started this one at 2:30, paused at 4:40 to eat pie, back at it at 5, finished at 7:30, realized I wasn't finished at 7:35, picked it back up at 8:10 the next morning, and actually finished it at 11:35. Grand total, 8 hours, 5 minutes. Ruffles and speed sewing do not mix. I give this one a 6 out of 10. Like, it's actually pretty cute in the end, but it's not necessarily good. I'm glad I tried it out though, because now I know how to make this peasant dress style really easily, and I'm sure I'll do better at it the next time. I was hoping to start this pinafore a bit earlier in the day, but after that ruffle took my whole morning, I felt the need to make a cake. Probably just because I mentioned cake earlier. I've never made a pinafore before, and I'm gonna try to do this in the split side skirt style, so the whole dang thing should be an adventure. First, I absolutely had to fit a full circle skirt on this fabric because you know what they say, if you love something, cling to it tightly and never let go. The good news is that after my most ambitious organization of material ever, I ended up with a full circle skirt and 18 other pieces. I'm a little overwhelmed now. But actually, it turned out to be a super straightforward construction. Like, I took a second to think about the steps and the order, and then it just worked. Nothing too complicated about it. I even continually ironed my seams, y'all. Shocker! Eventually I ended up with this super cute apron, and then I just had to attach the waistband to the back panel, sew that up the sides, hem the whole thing, and go to the store for snaps. I did get the hand sewing done that night though, so not too bad at all. And oh my goodness, it's the cutest! Pinafores are definitely making a grand entrance into my wardrobe. The full skirt, the pockets, the ease of the split side style. Yeah, I'm gonna have to make some more of these. I'm just dying over here. And I really want to get into layering more anyway, so this is a great way. I really wanted to see it over something else too, so I put it over this yellow gingham dress I made last time, and oh my goodness, it's even cuter. I started this one at 2:20, took fewer little breaks than normal, paused at 7:15 for dinner and a quick trip to Joann, and then tacked on another 20 minutes spent hand tacking for a grand total of 5 hours, 15 minutes. And I think we all know what grade this one is getting. 10 out of 10, baby. We had a beautiful day of springy, warm weather and sunshine yesterday, and I almost had hope that the rain was over. It's not over. 'Tis once again a dark and dreary day, and the forecast says there's plenty more of those to come. But I digress. So after trying on the pinafore with the striped peasant dress under it last night, I was like, okay, this is adorable. I want more options. So I'm adding another garment to the stack. Why not? I want to do another peasant dress using basically that exact same method that I used on the striped one, but learning from the striped one, doing it better this time, and also just doing it a little different. I want short sleeves on this one. I'm hoping to maybe do some tiers around it rather than just a straight dress. I know not to put 2 panels of fabric in the back this time. More fabric isn't always better. And I wanted something plain white. This is almost like a pale yellow, but it's the closest thing I had that I actually liked the fabric, so it'll work. Anyway, back to voiceover. So besides using less fabric on the front and back bodice, I also adjusted the angle of the armhole to be shorter and less angled. Remember to use my paper scissors this time. Then I just found a way to perfectly use up all of my fabric on the remaining tiers of the skirt, so in the end, all I had left over were these little white triangles I cut off the top pieces. That is what I love to see. Turns out I kind of overcorrected on size. The sleeves are fine, but since the fabric was only 45 inches wide instead of 60, using just half of that width on each side of the bodice is a little snug. In the end, I actually do like that it's not as bulky and poofy, especially since it's meant to go under things, but it's also much shorter than I expected and very snug around the hips, so I'm not sure how the addition of the tiered skirt will do. I don't know, we'll see. And once again, I find myself making ruffles while supposedly attempting to speed sew. I really have not gotten the point, have I? After ages of ruffling, and then oddly not ruffling the bottom tier because I messed up on the pans, and oh well, I give up, whatever, it's finally finished. Look, it's meant to be an undergarment. I could have just made it into a shirt, and honestly, I might just cut it off into a shirt length at some point in the future. But for now, this is what it is, wonkiness and all. And look at that! When you cover it up, it looks great! Looks perfectly fine under the thing that I made for it to go under, so you know what? That's a win. And now that I've made 2 peasant dresses and gotten both of them wrong in different ways, I feel like my third attempt, whenever that shall be, will be the Goldilocks of peasant dresses. It'll finally be just right. Maybe. I started this one at 8:45, took a bathroom break at 9:20 that turned into 40 minutes of staring at my phone, was back at it by 10 but took a lunch break at 11:20, returned at 12:15, had to run out at 12:45, back at 2, and finished at 4:10. These timings are getting way more complicated, aren't they? Altogether, that's, let's just say 4.5 hours. Something like that. And as for its grade, 3 out of 10. Okay, moving on. This one is a bit of a new experience. This fabric is printed specifically to make 2 circle skirts out of it, but I've never made a circle skirt out of stretch material, and this is a particularly dense and heavy one, so I'm really not sure how this will turn out. I basically just cut 2 strips to be the waistband and then cut the hole in the center a little smaller than what it would normally be, so like it can stretch, I guess? I honestly don't know. I considered putting in pockets, but that would have meant opening the sides, adding seam allowances, stabilizing the stretch somehow. Yeah, wasn't into it. Maybe I'll get more complex if I eventually make the second one. I just stitched the waistband onto this one and gave it a hem, and yeah, I mean, it works. Yeah? The waistband fits, technically, but in order to have enough stretch to go over my booty, it kind of feels like it's constantly about to fall off. I don't think it would unless I caught it on something, but the weight of the fabric really adds to that feeling of pulling downward. Overall, an interesting experiment. Anyways, the good news is that we have a winner in the speed sewing realm. I started this one at 5 and finished at 5:45. Woot woot! And I will give it a 5 out of 10 because it's super cute, but not super functional. Since it was still not bedtime, I decided to get a head start on the next piece. I have a job tomorrow, so I won't be able to sew, but I'd like to get the pattern pieces cut out for the wrap dress so it's ready to go when I come back to it. And as I expected, the pattern was immediately overwhelming.
This is a lot of pattern pieces.
So many pieces. So much paper. So much cutting of so many pieces on so much paper.
Come back in like a few days.
Yep, accurate. I had a long day on set yesterday and my body kind of, aches everywhere, but we're back at it and it's so nice to go straight into cutting out the pieces of fabric instead of messing with the pattern.
I have quite a desperate desire to alter this in some way.
I have such an overwhelming desire to alter any pattern I use. I mean, technically I am a little because I'm adding pockets. Why do these patterns not include pockets? And the back skirt panel is supposed to be cut as 2 pieces, but I'm cutting it on the fold because, well, I can, so why not? But y'all, what is it with me and patterns? I just have such a plethora of reasons for disliking them, and today, well, I was bored, quite frankly. I mean, maybe I just need to take a break from sewing in general, but it was just so boring sitting here following the directions to put together this dress. I didn't feel excited, I didn't feel challenged, my brain was constantly thinking of other things I could be doing instead. Yeah, I don't know, what's my problem? But in the end, I got this out of it and like, it's cute. It doesn't fit splendidly. Something about wrap tops and my body together, like they just don't like each other for some reason. I like the skirt. The flounce is really fun, especially in this fabric because it's so light and breezy, and even the flouncy sleeves are really nice, but I'm really missing the swoosh. It's just not really a dress that feels like me. Anyway, I spent a disconnected hour last night working on the pattern pieces, then another hour this morning cutting it all out, got distracted with a bunch of stuff, came back at 1:15 and finished it at 7 o'clock on the dot for a total time of 7 hours and 45 minutes. Not technically the longest of this batch, but there wasn't any gathering involved, so that does go to show how much time it takes to cut out a ton of pattern pieces. And perhaps unsurprisingly, it gets a solid 5 out of 10. Like, it's not great, but it's not bad either. I just don't love it. And I'm gonna call it right there for this project. We're done. Y'all, that was a lot of stuff to film and photograph. These sleeves, woo, they're a load of fun. I feel like every time I do a video wherein I make tons of clothing for some reason, I get to the end and I'm like, don't do that again. Make fewer things in a video. And then 3 days later, I'm like, how about I make 12 more things in one video? I do not learn my lesson. I mean, ultimately, that was 5 days of sewing, and not even whole days. It's not like I woke up at 7 and sewed straight through until midnight, you know, it was here and there sewing. I took a lot of breaks. And I got 7 garments out of it. Considering the fact that they do mix and match a bit more than I at first expected, I guess you could call this another capsule wardrobe. But we're not gonna. It is all very springy and adorable and bright and sunny clothing, and I really am pleased with all of the pieces. There are a few that I'm definitely planning to wear a lot more than others. This one's real comfy and swooshy. I don't think I can really say that I learned anything about, you know, speed sewing, because I don't think I really did it. I mean, ultimately, if you're like, I need this garment and I need it as fast as possible, then I think the general idea is to plan accordingly. Use a pattern that you know very well and that you're not planning on altering whatsoever. Make a garment that you've made a bunch of times before and you're very comfortable with. Make a very simple garment. If you don't have a serger, then, you know, use a fabric that you don't have to French seam the entire thing. And by all means, don't add hand-gathered ruffles. It's just, most of what I did here was specifically not helpful to the concept of speed sewing. But, you know, the lesson here is that I don't like speed sewing. I didn't like it at the beginning of the video. I don't like it now. I don't like sitting down to create something and just being like, when is it gonna be done? When is it gonna be done? When is it gonna be done? I have to do this as fast as possible. I have to cut corners and I have to make choices that are going to make this happen faster. I don't like sewing like that. Now granted, I cut corners all the time, but it's not because I want to get it done fast. It is simply because I'm lazy. And laziness does not always mean getting things done faster. Sometimes it just means inserting less effort. So yeah, there we go. I made a bunch of cute clothes that I've been wanting to make for a while. I have a whole little spring wardrobe to stick in my closet now and hopefully maybe wear somewhere very soon. It was fun. I got a little bored at the end, but I blame that mostly on the pattern I was using. Sorry, patterns. Ya boring. And on that note, yeah, I guess I'll go now. Okay, bye!